Have you ever stopped to think how much of your life has already been wasted because of procrastination? Maybe you postponed dreams, let opportunities slip away, or hid behind excuses that sounded reasonable. But the Book of Proverbs, written thousands of years ago, already exposed this invisible enemy that still paralyzes people today. Procrastination is not just a bad habit, it's a silent prison that steals time, energy, and purpose. What's most intriguing is that the Bible doesn't deal with this subject superficially. It brings strong, vivid images, fields filled with thorns, lazy hands that reap nothing, desires that never bear fruit. Each verse is both a warning against paralysis and an invitation to diligence. And here's the surprising part. Biblical. Wisdom is so practical that it could have been written yesterday because it describes exactly the struggles we face today. We've all procrastinated at some point. Who hasn't said, "I'll do it tomorrow"? But Proverbs shows us that tomorrow is the greatest trap of the lazy. The more we postpone, the further success drifts away. And while we think we're simply resting or waiting for the right moment, in reality, we're surrendering victories that could have been conquered today. This video is not just a reflection, it's a call to action. Here we will explore 15 powerful lessons drawn from Proverbs that unmask procrastination and reveal the path to discipline. You will discover why lost time never comes back, how excuses stall progress, and how even the smallest daily steps can create great results. Each lesson is both a warning and a key to transformation. The difference between stagnation and prosperity is not talent, but discipline. Proverbs reveals that the hand of the diligent will rule, while the negligent will always remain a slave to circumstances. This message is hard but liberating, because it reminds us that the power to change is not in the future, nor in external factors. It's in the decision we make today. If you've ever felt tired of delaying, frustrated by living in repetitive cycles, or trapped in promises never fulfilled, know that this message is for you. Here you'll learn clearly and deeply how to apply biblical wisdom to transform your routine, your mindset, and ultimately your destiny. So get ready. What you're about to hear is not mere theory, but practical principles that can change the way you face each day of your life. Because the truth is simple: procrastination steals, but diligence builds. And the time to start is not tomorrow, it is now. Before we continue, if you like our videos and feel that they have blessed your life, like and comment, even if it's just an amen. This makes a huge difference in getting this content to more people and impacting lives. If you are not subscribed yet, take the opportunity to subscribe, turn on notifications, and share with your loved ones. This way, YouTube will get to know you better and suggest even more videos like this to help you on your faith journey. Help to disseminate this message of faith and hope. Each like, comment, and share strengthens this work, which we do with great love. To edify your life, together we can reach even more hearts. Continuing. The first great truth revealed in Proverbs is that procrastination never leaves our life as it is. It doesn't just delay tasks, it slowly creates an environment of chaos and disorganization. The biblical text describes the lazy man's field, overgrown with thorns and nettles, as a faithful portrait of someone who neglects what should have been done today. This image is powerful because it shows that negligence doesn't lead to mere stagnation, but to a continuous and painful decline. Each excuse or delay is like another thorn growing in the field of life. When we neglect our field, whether it be our work, relationships, or health, we're giving room for disorder to settle in. Procrastination seems harmless at first, like a small oversight, but it quickly multiplies. Simple tasks turn into heavy burdens, demanding much more energy to resolve later. That's the treacherous nature of procrastination. It feeds on our passivity and convinces us we still have plenty of time. By the time we realize, the mess has already taken over. The impact is not only practical, but also emotional. The feeling of being behind or living in chaos generates anxiety, stress, and even discouragement. Each unfinished task weighs on the mind as a silent reminder. You should have done this. This mental burden drains our motivation, creating a vicious cycle in which we procrastinate even more because we already feel tired and overwhelmed. It's like being trapped in emotional quicksand. In biblical times, fields were symbols of sustenance and prosperity. A well-kept field represented discipline, effort, and wisdom. An abandoned one was a sign of poverty and negligence. Today, even if we don't literally live off farming, every area of our life is still a field that needs constant attention. If we don't water, care for, and cultivate it, we end up reaping only frustration and hardship. Take, for example, something as simple as tidying up your home. Constantly putting it off transforms a small adjustment into a huge problem. Clutter grows, dirt accumulates, and the environment becomes heavy. The same happens at work. A task that could have been done in minutes turns into a mountain of stress. When left undone, this build-up creates the false impression that we're incapable, when in fact the problem was just the habit of postponing. The wisdom of Proverbs shows us that order is the fruit of diligence, and disorder is the direct consequence of procrastination. It's not an immediate punishment, but the natural outcome of negligence. Life always charges a price for what we fail to do. That's why Scripture invites us to tend our field daily, even in small doses. Constancy, however simple, prevents chaos from finding space to grow. Here is the practical reflection. What field have you been neglecting? It could be your health, which you put off with the phrase, "Next week I'll start taking care of myself." It could be your finances, always left for when there's extra money. Or maybe your spirituality, only fed when there's leftover time. The real question is, how long will you let the thorns grow? Today is the day to start pulling them out and cultivating flowers again. Proverbs 6:19-11 presents us with a striking warning. How long will you lie there, O sluggard? Your poverty will come in like a thief. This text doesn't just speak of financial poverty, but also of emotional, spiritual, and even purposeful poverty. It reminds us that time is irreversible, and when we choose to waste it with procrastination, we are giving up opportunities that will never return. The thief here symbolizes the silent regret that arrives when we realize what we've let slip away. We often believe we have plenty of time. It's common to hear phrases like, "I'll start tomorrow," "Next week I'll handle it," or, "And when I have more time, I'll do it." But reality is that time never waits for us. It passes relentlessly, and the chances we could have seized vanish without warning. The lazy man doesn't notice this while indulging in comfort, but one day he discovers that his delay has cost him dearly, and that cost cannot be reversed. The regret of not acting at the right time is usually heavier than the effort it would have taken to act. Think of someone who wants to learn a new language. They keep saying, "I'll start tomorrow." Months later, they realize not only that they haven't started, but that others have advanced far ahead. The frustration of wasted time becomes greater than the initial difficulty they would have faced. Procrastination robs the future before it even arrives. Lost time also weakens dreams. Many people carry within them legitimate desires, projects that could transform their lives and even impact others. But by constantly delaying, those dreams never leave the paper. Little by little, the flame of motivation goes out, and what remains is a silent lament. I could have done it, but I didn't. This emptiness is exactly what Proverbs calls poverty, the lack of fruits that could have been harvested. Another crucial point is that lost time doesn't just affect us, but also those who depend on us. When we postpone responsibilities, we deprive people close to us of benefits they could have received. A delayed decision at work can harm an entire team. Neglected healthcare can weigh on the family. A word of encouragement not spoken may leave someone without strength. Procrastination is not just a personal delay, but also a collective negligence. If we want to live wisely, we need to learn to value every moment. The secret is not in waiting for the perfect time, but in doing the best we can with the time we have now. The ideal rarely arrives, but the present is always before us. Proverbs teaches that diligence is a daily choice, requiring attention, discipline, and courage not to let time slip through our fingers. Here is the practical reflection. What opportunities have you already noticed you lost by putting them off? And more importantly, what opportunities are still before you today, just waiting for your decision to act? Remember, lost time never returns, but the present can be redeemed. Each step taken today, however small, is a way to recover ground and avoid the heavy weight of regret tomorrow. Have you ever noticed how some people seem to have everything they need to succeed, yet remain stuck in the same place? Often, it's not a lack of talent nor of opportunities, but of discipline and action. The Book of Proverbs warns us about this in 10:4. Lazy hands make for poverty, but diligent hands bring wealth. This verse exposes a harsh truth. Procrastination doesn't just delay, it directly blocks the path to success. The text speaks of lazy hands, a phrase that means hands that delay, hands that push things off, hands that leave for tomorrow what could have been done today. This attitude, which seems harmless, compromises progress and undermines results. On the other hand, diligent hands represent consistent effort, discipline, and persistence. Success doesn't come by chance, but through the habit of acting, even when there's no motivation or perfect conditions. It's important to understand that success rarely comes from giant leaps. It is the fruit of small actions done consistently. The procrastinator, however, breaks this cycle. Instead of advancing step by step, they are always restarting, stuck with unfinished tasks and missed opportunities. Thus, the time that should have generated growth is lost to excuses and regrets. In ancient times, diligent work was seen as a legacy. It wasn't just about immediate sustenance, but about building something for future generations. A well-cultivated field, a prosperous business, or a service done with excellence left lasting marks. Today, it's no different. Every action we take, every task we complete, opens the way for greater opportunities. Procrastination, however, cuts this flow and keeps us small when we could be growing. Imagine an entrepreneur who postpones strategic decisions. He knows he needs to invest in marketing, improve processes, or train his team, but he always puts it off. Over time, the market evolves, competitors advance, and he falls behind. Meanwhile, another entrepreneur, though facing difficulties, dedicates himself daily to improving his business. In the long run, his diligence leads to success. This is the clear difference between lazy hands and diligent hands. Procrastination also generates inner frustration. When we know what we need to do but fail to do it, we create within ourselves a sense of incapacity. This lack of action weakens our confidence and makes us believe we cannot go further. Diligence, however, strengthens self-esteem, because every small victory reminds us we are capable of progress. Success begins within before it manifests outwardly. Here is the reflection. Have you allowed procrastination to steal your success? What are the areas where you already know what needs to be done, yet you're still delaying? Perhaps it's your finances, a course that could open doors, or even personal changes you've been ignoring. Remember, success waits for no one. It shows up for those who choose to act with discipline and persistence, even in small steps. Have you noticed how creative the human mind can be when inventing excuses? When we want to postpone something, we come up with justifications that sound perfectly reasonable, but are, in truth, only barriers we ourselves create. Proverbs 22:13 shows this in almost ironic fashion. The sluggard says, "There's a lion outside. I'll be killed in the public square." This absurd excuse reveals a powerful truth. Procrastinators will always find a reason not to act, even if it is unreal. Excuses function like invisible walls. Often, there is no real danger, no actual obstacle, but the mind manufactures justifications to avoid effort and discomfort. "I'm too tired. This isn't the right moment. I'll start tomorrow." All these phrases may sound logical, but in reality, they conceal the root of procrastination. The problem is that by accepting these excuses, we delay, progress, and stay stuck exactly where we are. This mechanism of self-sabotage is more common than we think. It shows up when we don't study because the environment isn't ideal, when we delay a project because we don't have all the resources yet, or when we avoid important conversations because the other person isn't ready. Each justification creates an illusion of logic, but the outcome is always the same: inaction. And inaction is the open door to stagnation. The wisdom of Proverbs is clear. Excuses rob us of the harvest, while the ant acts without waiting for orders. As we saw in the previous premise, the lazy man is content to invent stories to justify his lack of action. This shows us that the real danger is not outside, like the supposed lion, but inside our own mind. The greatest enemy of progress is not a lack of resources or opportunities, but the lack of decision to act. Imagine a student who has an important exam. Instead of studying, he convinces himself that he is too tired or that tomorrow will be more productive. When the test arrives, he realizes he is unprepared. The excuse that seemed to protect him actually became the cause of his downfall. This applies to all areas of life. Opportunities pass by, relationships weaken, businesses fail to grow, all because we believed more in our excuses than in our need to act. To break this cycle, we must learn to question our own justifications. Ask yourself, is this reason really true, or is it just a way of avoiding effort? Many times, the answer is surprising. Discipline begins precisely when we stop believing the arguments our mind creates to keep us comfortable. It's not about ignoring real limits, but about refusing to let false excuses rob us of the future. Here is the practical reflection. What excuses have you been using to avoid starting something important? Perhaps it's the argument of not having enough time, when in fact it's a matter of priorities. Perhaps it's fear disguised as prudence. Today, the challenge is to take one step beyond justifications. Because, as Proverbs teaches, while the lazy man sees lions in the streets, the diligent sees opportunities and keeps moving forward. When it comes to discipline and consistency, the Bible presents us with one of the simplest yet most powerful examples: the ant. In Proverbs 6:6-8 we read, "Go to the ant, you sluggard, consider its ways and be wise." It is impressive how such a tiny creature carries within itself such a great lesson. The ant doesn't need a boss, doesn't wait for perfect conditions, doesn't invent excuses. It simply acts every day without stopping. The great wisdom in this example is that the ant works in the present with the future in mind. It anticipates needs and prepares for difficult days, gathering provision while there is still abundance. This stands in direct contrast with procrastinators, who are always waiting for the ideal moment to begin. While the ant advances through small, consistent actions, the lazy person sinks deeper into inaction and excuses, losing precious time and opportunities. This principle can be applied to every area of life. Think about health, for example. Many postpone exercise and basic care, believing they'll have more time later. But those who act like the ant start small, drinking more water, walking a few minutes, improving diet, and over time, these decisions grow into habits and results. Constancy produces fruits, while postponement produces regret. Another inspiring aspect of the ant is its independence. It doesn't need anyone constantly reminding, pushing, or supervising it. Its motivation comes from within, from the instinct to survive and the vision of the future. In the same way, anyone who wants to overcome procrastination must learn to act without depending on external pressure. True discipline is born when we can move forward alone, without others having to drag us. The ant also teaches us about humility. It doesn't make noise, doesn't seek recognition, but the results of its quiet work are undeniable. This is another contrast with procrastinators, who often talk a lot about what they will do, but never act. Success doesn't come from speeches or promises, but from small actions performed day after day. Like the ant, we must learn to build in silence until the fruit naturally appears. And there is one more powerful detail. The ant never lets itself be paralyzed by the size of the task. Grain by grain, it carries much more than its own weight. This image reminds us that we don't need to take giant steps to move forward. We only need to be faithful in small actions. Procrastination convinces us that big moves are required to change. But the ant shows that victory lies in the simple habit of never stopping. Here is the practical reflection. Have you been waiting for perfect conditions before taking action? What could you start today, even if small, but that with time would grow into a great result? Just like the ant, you don't need applause or orders, only decision. The secret is to act now, consistently, without letting excuses deceive you. Have you ever known someone who starts many projects but rarely finishes any? That is a classic picture of lack of perseverance, something the Bible warns us is dangerous. In Proverbs 19:24 we read, "A sluggard buries his hand in the dish. He will not even bring it back to his mouth." This is a striking image. Someone begins an action but lacks the will to complete it. This behavior is not just laziness, it is a lack of commitment to the end of the journey. The beginning is always exciting. Enthusiasm, novelty, and initial motivation push us to take the first steps. But it is in the middle of the road, when obstacles appear, when routine sets in, or when fatigue arrives, that perseverance must take over. Those who fail to insist when difficulties arise end up stopping before reaching results. It's like abandoning a race just meters before the finish line. Lack of perseverance creates a cycle of frustration. Unfinished projects, unfulfilled goals, promises made but not kept. Each abandonment weakens self-confidence and increases the sense of incapacity. People begin to believe they lack discipline or talent, when in reality, all they lacked was consistency. If not broken, this pattern generates a life marked by attempts without concrete results. Proverbs shows us that finishing is more valuable than starting. Many can begin something with enthusiasm, but few have the discipline to see it through. Success doesn't lie in launching projects, but in completing them. The real difference between a dreamer and an achiever is here. The dreamer always talks about what he will do. The achiever, though facing challenges, keeps going until he finishes. This applies to all areas of life. How many people start a diet but quit at the first difficulty? How many begin reading a book but never finish? How many dream of starting a business but give up when obstacles appear? These examples show that lack of perseverance is not about physical effort, but a mental decision. Finishing requires more character than starting. Perseverance also builds maturity. Every time we persist in a task, we learn to deal with frustration. to overcome limitations, and to grow in discipline. Even when results take time, consistency shapes our character. That is why Proverbs insists so much on diligence, because it transforms ordinary people into extraordinary achievers. Without perseverance, no talent, resource, or opportunity will be enough. Here is the practical reflection. What projects have you already begun and then abandoned? Which of them could still be resumed and completed, bearing fruit in your life? Remember, there is no shame in restarting, but there is loss in permanently abandoning what could transform your story. Today is the day to decide to be perseverant. For as Proverbs says, the hand of the diligent prospers, but the hand of the lazy will never see results. Proverbs 24 declares, sluggards do not plow in season, so at harvest time they look but find nothing. This passage reminds us of an unbreakable law, both spiritual and practical. The future belongs to those who prepare at the right time. Those who postpone necessary effort today will reap frustration tomorrow. It is like a farmer who refuses to prepare the soil and later expects a miraculous harvest. The result will not be abundance, but scarcity. This principle is timeless. In the past, failing to plow meant hunger. Today, failing to prepare means closed doors and missed opportunities. How many people have seen a job slip away because they were unprepared? How many have lost chances for growth because they didn't organize on time? Procrastination deceives us, making us believe we still have margin. But when the deadline arrives, the lack of preparation charges a heavy price. Lack of preparation also breeds dependence. Those who fail to sow at the right moment must beg later. This doesn't only mean material poverty, but also emotional and spiritual poverty. The person who fails to prepare for challenges is always at the mercy of others, relying on favors, luck, or rescue. The diligent, on the other hand, secures independence and authority. Preparation is what gives us the strength to walk without depending on circumstances. A clear example is the student who postpones studying until the last day before an exam. What could have been a calm and gradual process of learning turns into desperation and frustration. The same applies to finances. Those who don't prepare with savings or planning end up living at the edge, constantly seeking last-minute solutions. Procrastination turns simple tasks into crises, all because of neglected preparation. Proverbs teaches us that there is a time to plow. This means that each season of life requires specific efforts. If we fail to act when needed, the future will not yield a harvest. The secret is not working more later, but working faithfully now. The lazy always believes there will be time later, but Scripture shows that every missed season is irreversible. On the other hand, preparation brings peace. Those who sow ahead of time are not anxious about the harvest. Those who organize their lives don't live in desperation. Discipline today is what guarantees tranquility tomorrow. This is the difference between the diligent and the procrastinator. One acts with vision for the future, the other lives improvising. And improvisation rarely sustains great achievements. Here is the practical reflection. In what areas of your life have you failed to prepare? It might be your studies, your faith, your finances, or even your relationships. What should you be plowing now so that your harvest tomorrow will be abundant? Remember, tomorrow will reflect today's choices. And if you want different results, the time to act is not later, it is now. Proverbs 12:24 gives us a profound truth. Diligent hands will rule, but laziness ends in forced labor. Here, Scripture shows that discipline opens doors of leadership and freedom, while procrastination traps us in dependence. The diligent have control over their choices and circumstances, but those who delay responsibilities inevitably end up at the mercy of others or of situations. Procrastination steals autonomy. When we fail to handle responsibilities at the right time, we are always running behind, trying to fix problems instead of preventing them. This puts us in a position of vulnerability, dependent on favors, on others' goodwill, or even as slaves to circumstances. While the diligent create opportunities, the procrastinators live as captives of chance, always reacting instead of acting. This principle manifests in every area of life. At work, those who procrastinate end up depending on colleagues' help, damaging their own reputation. In finances, those who delay planning fall into debt and become dependent on loans. In spiritual life, those who neglect time with God often rely on others' faith to sustain them. In all cases, lack of action leads to dependence. Diligence, on the other hand, brings freedom. The worker who acts with discipline gains independence and trust. He becomes reliable, capable of leading, because he doesn't need improvisation to deliver results. Proverbs teaches us that the difference between ruling and being ruled is not luck, but the habit of acting with consistency. Every action taken on time is a brick laid in the construction of freedom. A simple example, someone who delays learning new skills in their profession. Over time, they become limited, needing colleagues or supervisors to handle basic tasks. Meanwhile, another who invested in learning becomes indispensable and gains autonomy. Procrastination turns talents into limitations. Diligence turns limitations into opportunities. It is important to understand that procrastination always charges a price. It may feel comfortable at first, but the bill comes in the form of lost opportunities, dependence on others, and submission to circumstances. The lazy person thinks he's avoiding effort, but in reality, he is surrendering his own freedom. The diligent, though tired, reaps the reward of independence. Here is the practical reflection. Have you been master or slave of your choices? In what areas has procrastination made you dependent on others or on situations? And more importantly, what steps can you take today to regain control? Remember, the hand of the diligent rules, but the lazy will always serve. Proverbs 13:4 delivers a striking truth. A sluggard's appetite is never filled, but the desires of the diligent are fully satisfied. This verse draws a sharp contrast between wanting and acting. The lazy person fills his mind with desires, builds plans in his imagination, but never transforms intention into movement. The diligent, even with fewer resources or less time, finds abundance because he chooses to act. Desire without action is nothing but illusion. It is common to find people full of dreams. They talk about places they want to visit, projects they want to launch, the kind of life they want to live. But the problem is that everything stays in the realm of imagination. Year after year, they keep wishing, but nothing changes because they never take the first step. Desire alone does not change reality. Action is what opens the door to progress. This principle is obvious in practice. Imagine someone who dreams of writing a book. They talk about it for years, but never write a single page. Meanwhile, someone else, perhaps less talented, decides to write a little every day. In the end, the one who acted publishes the book, while the dreamer remains with nothing but the idea. The difference is not in the dream, it is in the attitude. Desire without action also creates frustration. Each time we dream without acting, we build internal weight, a sense of incapacity. This erodes self-esteem and strengthens the belief that we'll never achieve anything. But when we turn intention into action, even in small steps, motivation grows. Every achievement strengthens us, proving that we can indeed move forward. Action, more than desire, builds confidence. Another important detail is that desires are infinite, but time is limited. If we don't act on some of them, we waste an entire life in daydreams. That is why Proverbs emphasizes diligence. It's not about wanting everything, but about acting on what really matters. Success doesn't come from desiring everything, but from committing to action in what is essential. The diligent soul is satisfied because it understands that every effort bears fruit. It doesn't live in frustrated expectations, but in concrete results. The lazy soul, however, feels empty because it desires much, but accomplishes little. This difference shapes not only external outcomes, but also internal satisfaction. The diligent enjoys the joy of seeing their dreams leave the paper. Here is the practical reflection. What desires have you been nurturing without turning them into action? What could you start today, even in small steps, to move from imagination into reality? Remember, it's not the size of the desire that matters, but the decision to act. Success begins when we stop only wanting and start doing. Proverbs 14:23 teaches, "All hard work brings a profit, but mere talk leads only to poverty." This verse confronts us with a harsh reality. Speaking without acting produces no results. How many times have we caught ourselves saying what we're going to do, promising changes, planning great things, but never turning those words into concrete actions? The result is always the same: frustration, emptiness, and delay. Words without action are like seeds that never touch the soil. They may hold potential, but they bear no fruit because they were never planted. It's easy to fool ourselves with promises, plans, and inspiring speeches. But true progress does not come from talking about what we will do. It comes from putting our hands to work. Even when difficult or small, work always produces a return. This principle is evident in everyday life. Think of someone who constantly says they will start a diet, enroll in a course, or organize their finances. They tell their friends, post online, and dream aloud. But time passes and nothing changes. Meanwhile, another person, quiet and discreet, starts walking, studying, or saving money. In the end, the difference between them is striking. One talked, the other acted. Procrastination often disguises itself in beautiful words. We tell ourselves we are planning, when in reality we are just delaying action. Planning is important, but it only has value when followed by practice. Excessive talk without follow-through is nothing but a sophisticated way of procrastinating. Proverbs cuts through this illusion, showing that profit lies in work, not in words. Another point is that words without action undermine credibility. When we promise and don't deliver, we lose trust, not only before others, but also within ourselves. Each unfulfilled promise chips away at confidence and strengthens the feeling of incapacity. That's why, more than saying what we will do, we must learn to show it through results. Actions are the most convincing language that exists. It's interesting to notice that in the Bible, diligence is always linked to concrete results. God does not reward intentions but efforts. Faith, for example, is described in James as dead, without works. In other words, even in the spiritual realm, action proves the truth of words. The same applies to all areas of life. Those who act transform. Those who only talk remain stagnant. Here is the practical reflection. How many things have you said you would do, but still haven't started? How many plans have you shared that remain stuck on paper? The invitation from Proverbs is simple and direct. Trade speeches for actions. Begin small, but begin today. Because in the end, it's not how much we talk about change that matters, but how much we're willing to act to make it real. Few people realize that procrastination doesn't just waste time, it also drains our mental and emotional energy. Every postponed task lingers in the mind like an invisible weight, consuming space and creating a heavy burden. It's as if each unfinished item becomes a stone added to the backpack of our conscience. The more we delay, the heavier the load, and the more exhausted we feel, even without having done anything. This phenomenon has a simple explanation: Our mind cannot rest when it knows something important has been left undone. The brain registers the task as incomplete and keeps reminding us of it, increasing anxiety. Procrastination creates a false sense of relief the moment we postpone, but soon turns that relief into accumulated stress. In the end, the exhaustion is much greater than if we had just done the task right away. Proverbs warns us of this when it describes the lazy man's life as full of thorns and obstacles. The external mess is a reflection of the internal overload. The procrastinator not only faces piled-up tasks, but also a mind filled with worries. This lack of clarity drains motivation, creativity, and energy. The abandoned field of the lazy is actually the portrait of an overwhelmed mind. A simple example: imagine someone who needs to tidy their house. By delaying, the clutter grows and begins to cause discomfort. Every time they walk through the messy rooms, they feel internal unease. Even without physical effort, emotional weight grows heavier. The same happens at work or school. The unfinished task becomes a ghost that haunts, draining energy before it even begins. Procrastination creates a vicious cycle. The more we postpone, the more tired we become. And the more tired we feel, the more likely we are to postpone again. This cycle can lead to stagnation, chronic anxiety, and even mental health problems. Diligence, on the other hand, liberates. Each completed task brings relief, clarity, and motivation to continue. Finishing releases energy. Postponing drains it. Proverbs shows us that diligence is a source of life because it brings order, peace, and mental strength. When we act, even in small steps, we eliminate the weight of pending tasks and recover energy to move forward. Procrastination promises rest but delivers exhaustion. Diligence demands effort but rewards with renewal. That is the difference that changes destinies. Here is the practical reflection. How many things have you been carrying mentally just because you delayed them? What relief would you feel if you completed at least one of them today? Don't underestimate the power of finishing small tasks. They clear the mind, restore energy, and create space for greater achievements. As Proverbs teaches, those who act with diligence rest in peace. Those who procrastinate never find true rest. Laziness is more than just the absence of physical movement. It is a state of the soul. Proverbs repeatedly describes the lazy as someone who prefers to remain still even when they have every condition to act. This behavior, seemingly harmless, becomes a silent poison that paralyzes growth. The lazy do not regress immediately, but they also do not advance, and stagnation over time becomes a dangerous form of decline. Stagnation means living stuck in the same place year after year. People like this don't notice how far behind they are falling because they've grown accustomed to the lack of progress. While others grow, learn, achieve, and move forward, the lazy remain trapped in excuses, comfort, and illusions. It is like a plant that is no longer watered. It doesn't die suddenly, but slowly dries up until it loses life completely. Proverbs makes it clear that laziness leads nowhere. Desire exists, but the lack of action prevents results. This combination creates frustration. The person dreams but never sees fulfillment. Time passes and they remain trapped in a cycle of repetition without fruits. The problem with stagnation is that it is not only external but also internal. It robs motivation, hope, and even the capacity to dream big. A practical example can be seen in professional life. While some invest in courses, experiences, and new skills, the lazy continually delay, believing they'll do it one day. When they realize it, the market has shifted, opportunities have passed, and they remain in the same place, unprepared to move forward. Laziness doesn't just block achievements, it closes doors that might have been opened with a little effort. Stagnation also affects relationships. Those who fail to invest time in listening, caring, or nurturing bonds end up with shallow or distant connections. Just as an uncultivated field produces no fruit, a relationship without effort will not flourish. Emotional laziness creates cold homes, superficial friendships, and fragile connections. The result is loneliness and dissatisfaction, the bitter fruits of inaction. On the other hand, diligence is synonymous with life. Those who act with discipline continually find new opportunities, new lessons, and new achievements. Action creates movement, and movement produces progress. Even when results don't show up right away, the simple act of acting keeps people in constant growth. Stagnation kills silently. Diligence keeps the flame of growth alive. Here is the practical reflection. In what areas of your life do you feel stuck, unable to move forward? It could be in work, faith, finances, or relationships. What's missing is not ability, but decision. The Bible shows us that laziness breeds stagnation, but diligence produces advancement. The question is, will you remain still or will you choose to move toward your purpose? One of the greatest traps of procrastination is convincing us that only big steps matter. We think, when I have more time, I'll start, or when conditions are perfect, then I'll act. But Proverbs, by pointing us to the example of the ant, shows the opposite. Progress is built in small, consistent steps. It is the little, done daily, that grows into much over time. The secret of diligence lies in consistency. Just as the ant carries grain by grain until it builds an abundant store, we also achieve great accomplishments by adding small actions together. The procrastinator waits for the perfect opportunity and loses time. The wise person, however, acts with what they have at the pace they can, knowing that each effort is a brick in the construction of a solid future. This principle is powerful because it breaks the illusion of haste. We live in a culture of immediacy, where everyone wants instant results, but the Bible teaches us that true prosperity doesn't come from a leap, but from a steady walk. Great results don't suddenly appear. They are the fruit of years of discipline and daily choices that seem small, but when accumulated, transform destinies. A practical example is health. Someone may believe they need a radical transformation to change habits, but in truth, it's enough to begin with small decisions: drinking more water, walking a few minutes, sleeping better. Over time, these gestures become habits, and habits turn into results. What once seemed impossible becomes achievable because it was built step by step. The same applies to spiritual life. Many people desire greater intimacy with God, but believe they must pray for hours daily before they begin. The reality is that even a few minutes of daily devotion, done with consistency, open the door to profound experiences. Spiritual growth, like material growth, doesn't happen at once, but through the accumulation of small seeds of faith. Proverbs teaches us that the diligent do not despise small beginnings. They understand that every step counts, every effort has value. Procrastination traps us in an all-or-nothing mindset. Diligence reminds us that little by little is also a path to victory. This mindset not only changes external results, but also strengthens our inner patience, discipline, and faith. Here is the practical reflection. What great dreams have you delayed because they seemed unreachable? What could you begin today in a smaller version, but still real? Remember, small steps create great results. The grand future begins with the simple decision to act now without waiting for perfect conditions. Proverbs is clear that diligence is one of the greatest keys to prosperity. In several passages we read that the hand of the diligent will be blessed, that steady work brings growth, and that disciplined effort opens doors. Prosperity in this context does not mean only material wealth, but also peace, credibility, influence. and fulfillment. The diligent prosper because they plant consistently and reap abundantly. Prosperity begins in the mindset. While the lazy look for shortcuts and excuses, the diligent understand that lasting results demand continuous effort. They don't wait for luck, but trust that every action taken at the right time brings them closer to a better future. The Bible shows us that God honors diligence because it reflects responsibility and wisdom. Daily discipline is what opens doors that laziness will never reach. This prosperity manifests in all areas. At work, the diligent stand out through consistency and quality, gaining trust and opportunities. In relationships, they invest time and attention, reaping strong and healthy bonds. In spiritual life, they dedicate themselves to seeking God and experience depth and peace. The lazy, however, live off the scraps of life, while the diligent build abundance. It's important to understand that diligence doesn't mean working non-stop, but working with purpose. Many confuse movement with productivity, but the truly diligent know where to invest their energy. They don't waste time on distractions or live trapped in immediacy. They act with focus, directing their efforts toward what truly matters. That clarity multiplies results and generates lasting prosperity. A clear example is professionals who, though not initially talented, achieve success because they dedicate themselves with discipline. They may not be the most brilliant, but their consistency makes them indispensable. On the other hand, talented people consumed by laziness remain behind, never transforming potential into results. Diligence always surpasses laziness in the long run. Proverbs also shows us that diligence generates credibility. Those who are consistent inspire trust and become a reference. This trust opens greater doors because people and opportunities always gravitate toward those who demonstrate responsibility and perseverance. Prosperity is not random. It is the natural consequence of discipline. The diligent reap because they sowed with wisdom, and their life becomes living testimony of the reward of constancy. Here is the practical reflection. What doors do you want to see opened in your life? Career, relationships, spirituality, or finances? Remember, they do not open with desire, but with diligence. Proverbs is clear: be faithful in the little, and the much will come. Prosperity is reserved for those who refuse to be conquered by laziness and instead choose to act with discipline and consistency every day. The final lesson Proverbs offers us about procrastination is simple yet transformative. The secret is acting today, not tomorrow, not when there's more time, not when conditions are perfect. Today. Postponing is surrendering the present and jeopardizing the future. Acting is embracing the moment we have now and turning it into opportunity. This is the difference between the diligent and the procrastinator. One waits, the other builds. Procrastination is an expert at deceiving us with the illusion of later. There always seems to be a better moment, a more convenient chance. But the truth is that the perfect time never comes. Those who wait for ideal conditions end up missing the chance to start. Those who decide to act now, even with limited resources, pave the way for things to align along the journey. Proverbs teaches us that diligence is immediate because it understands that each day lost is a seed that was never planted. The lazy. Man's abandoned field did not fill with thorns overnight. It was the result of small, accumulated negligences. In the same way, the diligent man's prosperity does not come from a single act, but from many daily decisions to act without delay. Acting today doesn't mean doing everything at once, but taking the first step. Many times we delay because we think massive changes are required. But wisdom lies in beginning small. The first workout, the first page written, the first saving set aside. Each beginning opens doors to new opportunities. Faith without works is dead, and dreams without action are too. The great danger of postponement is that it piles up. What we put off until tomorrow rarely resolves itself. Instead, it turns into weight, anxiety, and regret. Today is always lighter than tomorrow, because tomorrow comes loaded with yesterday's delays. The secret to living with greater peace is to act now, so that the future is the fruit of present decisions, not of past excuses. Proverbs shows us that life is made of choices, and each choice opens or closes paths. When we choose procrastination, we close doors that could have led us to higher places. When we choose diligence, we open possibilities we never imagined. The future is being built right now. To ignore this is to waste the chance to shape our own destiny. Here is the final reflection. What is the first step you can take today to leave procrastination behind and walk the path of diligence? It may be small, but it must begin now. Because, in the end, it is not theory that transforms, but practice. The secret is acting today with courage, consistency, and faith. And as Proverbs teaches, those who act with diligence will always see the fruits of their perseverance. Throughout these 15 premises, we learned that procrastination is not just an innocent habit, but a silent enemy that steals time, energy, and opportunities. Proverbs showed us that the field of the lazy fills with thorns, that lost time never returns, and that desire without action is empty. We discovered that excuses stall progress, lack of perseverance destroys achievements, and failing to prepare leads to future frustration. Each lesson revealed that procrastination not only delays us, but creates a cycle of poverty, frustration, and dependence. On the other hand, we saw that diligence is a powerful key. It opens doors to prosperity, generates freedom, and produces fruit in every area of life. The ant, in its simplicity, teaches us that greatness is built in daily steps, and Proverbs assures us that the hand of the diligent will always be rewarded. The path of wisdom is not one of waiting, but of action. Not one of stagnation, but of constant movement, even when motivation is absent and conditions aren't perfect. The central message of Proverbs is clear. Success, peace, and prosperity do not come by chance, but by the choice to live with discipline. The lazy are satisfied with talking, but the diligent choose to act. The procrastinator remains trapped in desire, but the diligent worker transforms desire into concrete results. Life rewards those who do not wait for tomorrow but choose to plant today. And here lies the most challenging point. It is not only about understanding these lessons, but applying them. It's not enough to want change, we must commit to it. It's not enough to dream of a better future if seeds are not planted in the present. Every small act of discipline is a brick laid in the construction of victory. Today's action is tomorrow's miracle. Now the choice is in front of you. Will you continue delaying, waiting for perfect conditions that may never come? Or will you decide to act, even with the little you have, to transform your life? Remember, procrastination generates delay, but diligence generates advancement. Laziness creates dependence, but discipline creates freedom. The future you long for is already in your hands. It begins with the decision you make today. That is why the invitation is simple and direct. Take the first step now. Pull out the thorn of procrastination and begin cultivating flowers of discipline. Remember the ant, which without applause, excuses, or depending on anyone, builds its future with constancy. If you apply this wisdom, you will not only change the course of your life, but also become an inspiration for others. Proverbs is not a book of pretty words, but a practical manual that, when followed, transforms destinies. Procrastination may feel comfortable, but only diligence produces true fruit. And as Scripture says, the hand of the diligent will rule. May this be your reality, not tomorrow, not when it's convenient, but starting today.